I was over at the Capitol on January 22nd, 1973. The phone rang, and it was a reporter from the New York Times. And the reporter said, "Does Miss Weddington have a comment today about Roe versus Wade?" And my assistant said, "Should she?" And the reporter said, "It was decided today." And she said, "How was it decided?" And the reporter said she won it, 7-2. A minute later, we got a telegram from the U.S. Supreme Court telling me I'd won 7-2, and they were air mailing a copy of the opinion. It's one of the ways I think about how long ago it was. There are no telegrams today. It was a time when the opportunities for women were very limited, and we were trying to push back those barriers. Here in Austin, I ended up working at the law school for a professor, and a group of graduate students here, mostly women in the sciences, but some men, some boyfriends helping, and they began to try to tell women about contraception. The health center at UT at that time did not allow access to women unless they certified they were within 6 weeks of marriage, because the thought was you had to start the pill in order to be protected for your wedding night. But a lot of women ended up pregnant. They were also trying to gather information about where a woman could go for abortion. California was legal, New York was legal, but who would know where to go? It wasn't in the newspaper, and so they began to do counseling. So eventually they came to me and said, "Can we be more public about this, or would we be prosecuted as accomplices to the crime of abortion?" And I said, "I don't know, I'll go to the law library and look it up." And that became the beginning of Roe versus Wade. I had tried to lobby the legislature in 1971, a big group of us from all over the state, mostly women, but some men helping. And we had tried to challenge the law in Texas through the legislature. There was a legislator from Dallas who sponsored a bill. We hadn't gotten any place. You couldn't get in an office to talk about it. And so we began to talk about, well, how can we get women's issues more seriously dealt with? And so we decided what we had to do was run a campaign. When we filed, it wasn't that I thought I would win, but we would learn how, and if I did win, then we could really make some changes at the legislature. So eventually I won the seat and was the first woman ever to represent Austin-Travis County in the Texas legislature. There were 5 women who were installed in the Texas House that particular year, 1973. You know, it was mixed. Frankly, it was so different because then a lot of the Republican legislators were willing to help me with women's issues. So some of them were very much in my favor. Others were just so glad they weren't going to have to deal with that issue during the 1973 session. I think it's been major, partially because more and more women are in the legislature now, so they have more and more influence, even though last session the bill to require sonograms was passed. Carol Alvarado was the woman legislator who brought a vaginal ultrasound stick to the floor and was showing what that really meant and what women went through because of it. So you've got some really fine young women legislators there. The only way for abortion to be made illegal would be a change in the membership of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I just don't see that happening, at least not in the next 4 years. However, the whole issue of access, that's one where the opposition is having a lot of impact. And so I worry about that. I think there's still a big issue on where women can get contraception. Now, we have seen statistically that the more contraception is available, the fewer unwanted pregnancies there are, and so the fewer abortions there are. So it just makes sense to me that we ought to be doing everything we can to make contraception easily available to all women. And hopefully the number of abortions will continue to go down. I think women are much stronger as a voting bloc, much more determined for themselves to save the rights they have and to be sure they're not taken away. So I feel good about women as a voting bloc. I think we still have a long way to go in getting out information on how to be effective as lobbyists, as people trying to influence the legislature.